Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So we are going over the book, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People, and we are on chapter 9 today. So before we go into that, we're going to go ahead and invite some people onto here. And this camera's crooked. So that happens when stuff gets moved around. There we go.
There we go. We're all back. Chris Reed. Here we go, here we go, here we go.
There we go.
And all right, we're on chapter 9, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. This book's really good on human relations. Unfortunately or fortunately, you're going to deal with people one way or another in every work environment you're in, most likely, especially if you're going to be in direct sales, network marketing, MLM. Especially if you're going to be building a team, especially if you're going to be recruiting. These are just things you want to know. Some people do them naturally because they're taught and brought up around people who understand human relations. Most people are not, and most people result to their basic human instincts. So this chapter, a technique called magic, the 7 ways to practice listening. So listening, I mean, there's several of these chapters are about listening. Why is that? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That should be a clue right off the bat. This art of listening is so important. Don't pass it over without putting it into practice. Perhaps you read something that sounds good. Are you convinced that it's true? Then resolve it by putting it into practice. But if you don't check yourself, you forget all about it all day or in a day or two. So he's like, a lot of this sounds good, but you have to start doing it immediately to be able to get good at it. I mean, there were certain things that I started to do that I learned from these type of books that I would go out and put it into practice the same day, and I was like, holy wow, this stuff works. So nail down the knowledge you gained from this chapter and don't let it get away. Start practicing the following. The first thing is look at the person you're talking to. This has become more and more difficult today because everybody has a phone in their hand. In restaurants, you know, I see this happening more often than not. People are looking down at their phone and completely ignoring the person who's like, would you like something to drink? Would you like something to drink? You know, and they're having to basically yell at the person because the person's so intrigued on their phone, you know, tapping and scrolling. It's a problem. It happens not just there, it happens in now the classroom. You know, kids are like this. I don't know why an 8-year-old needs an iPhone, but they have them. 7-year-olds have iPhones. 10-year-olds have iPhones. It's unfortunate, but it happens. So look at the person. Anybody worth listening to is worth looking at. It'll also help you concentrate on what they're actually saying, because a lot of times, you know, you don't pick up sarcasm. You don't pick up some of the small 1% things because you're not physically looking at the person. Guilty. I can raise my hand to almost all these. 2, appear deeply interested in what they're saying. If you agree, nod your head. If they tell a story, smile. Respond appropriately would be the best way. If you didn't get it, say, wait a minute. Clarify that. What did you say? You know, how does that work? Work with the person, you know, seem interested. That would help. 3, lean towards the person who's talking. So we teach this actually inside of trainings. inside of briefings. When we talk about an open house, you want to sit at the edge of your chair, you want to lean forward, you want to be taking notes. Why? That makes you seem interested. The opposite is also true. The person that leans back like this is like, so boring, I'm trying to make it through, I've watched people completely fall asleep inside of open houses for, opportunity meetings. Why? Because they lean back, they got their feet stretched out, wide leg, not paying attention, not taking notes. It's unfortunate. They're participating in a way. They're filling a chair, but sometimes they're only filling a chair and taking up air. So lean forward. Ever notice you have the tendency to lean forward towards an interested talker and then lean back on a disinterested person? So this is also a way to gauge your audience. Are you connecting with people? If everybody starts looking elsewhere, it's amazing. There are some people right now that can captivate people so fast that people aren't even on their phones. Like, that's impressive. That's really impressive. When people stop what they're doing and they're like, okay, I need to watch what's going on because this is something that, here's the thing, it's more entertaining than even the phone, which that's hard to do nowadays. 4, ask questions. This lets the person who's talking know that you're actually still listening and still interested. What do you mean by that? Clarify. Basically read it back to them what you're talking about. Okay, here's what I got. What are you talking about? 5, don't interrupt. Instead, ask them to tell you more. Ask them to give you more details. Most people are highly complimented if you don't interrupt them until they're through talking, but they're doubly complimented when you draw more out of them. Oh, that sounds interesting. Why did you choose to go there? Well, that sounds interesting. Who did you go with? Well, that sounds interesting. What got you interested in it? They'll just go on and on and on and on and on. Would you mind going into detail on the last point? Or, I'd like to know a little bit more about what you're saying. People will take it from there. This is pretty simple. Stick to the speaker's subject. Don't change the subject on a person until they're finished, no matter how anxious you are to get started on the next subject. We've all done this and probably met somebody who's done this. It's not a good habit, but it happens. 7, use the speaker's words to get your own point across. When the other person has finished talking, repeat it back to them. What the person said. If you repeat back to what the person said and then go to make your next point, they're listening at a different level. It's kind of like magic, is what they talk about. This not only proves you've been listening, but is also a good way to basically introduce your own ideas without opposition. So you say this, and this is what you think. Is that correct? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, have you ever looked at it like this? Like, oh, no, I've never even looked at that. So you're complimenting them, so it's very hard for them to get mad at you when you're complimenting them and you're listening and you're, making the point. Preface some of your own remarks with, as you pointed out, or you just said this. What's funny is you can get into an argument like, you just said this, or like, no, I did not. I was like, I'm glad I'm taping this. No, I'm kidding. I did that, by the way. Don't ever do that as a kid. I actually did that. I took out an old cassette tape player, and my mom would say, I never said that. And I was like, well, actually you did, and I have it on tape. And I just listened to it because you say you never say this, and here it is on tape. The following week I woke up, and yeah. It's pretty good. So anyway, that was a really good point here. So Walt Whitman and a friend were once walking down the street. Whitman stopped and engaged in a stranger in a conversation for 15 to 20 minutes. Whitman monopolized the conversation, and the other fellow barely opened his mouth. When they left, Whitman turned to his friend and said, that was a really intelligent person. And he's like, how do you know he was intelligent? Asked his friend. He hardly said a word. He's like, he listened to me, didn't he? He's like, that proves he's intelligent. It says, stop thinking for a moment of your friends. Stop to think for a moment of your friends and acquaintances who basically have the reputation of being intelligent and wise. How do you basically vote this for yourself? How do you vote for that? How do you vote the person's intelligent? Is it because they can talk and monopolize the time? Sometimes that also comes across as arrogant and a jerk. People will tell you what they want from you if you'll just listen. Also, you want to ask a question. So I was listening to a very, very successful person in direct sales yesterday. And he talked about the game plan interview. The game plan interview is basically when you sit down, when you first meet somebody. He goes, my goal is really to sit down and get to know them. He goes, I want to know if they're really in the game, if they're playing the game. He's like, look, I just have a couple questions to ask you. He's like, after I find out where they're from, after I find out who they are, after I find out what they're about, he goes, I ask them some very specific questions. He's like, what are you doing this for? Like, why did you join? What'd you like best about what we do? And then he got into, what are you looking to make? What are you looking to make? Are you looking to make $1,000 a month, $1,000 a week, or $1,000 a day? And he would get an answer from them. He's like, okay, what do you want to do with that money? Because that's the most important thing. What do you want to do with that money? He's like, okay, you got some good reasons. He's like, I want to know this. How many hours a week would you give it, to make this happen? How many hours a week would you give it? Okay. How many hours a week for how long would you give it? And then how long would you commit to this to make this kind of money, if you can make this kind of money or more? And what he was doing is trying to also logic it out. Is this person playing with a full deck? I talk to people consistently inside of network marketing asking these questions. And unfortunately, people have very unrealistic ideas of what it's going to take and how it works. So like, I need to recruit 3 people immediately. That's great. How many people do you need to talk to? 2. I was like, okay, even in basic math, that doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense. How many hours are you willing to commit to it? Well, I'm going to commit all day, but I'm also going to watch TV. I'm also going to watch a movie. I'm also going to be at the park. I'm also going to go to the zoo. I'm also going to be with my friends. Just the logic doesn't add up. So this is a way that this gentleman that I was listening to is a multi-millionaire, now an owner of a company. But he was like, it doesn't make any sense. He goes, that's the gauge of how much time you want to put in, are they logically at a point where they're ready to actually build and they understand what's going on. And unfortunately, man, there are so many people who just don't understand what's going on at all in the world. So you're looking for the ones, you're looking for the few. He's like, the reality is you don't need a ton of people who get it. You just need a few people who get it. The unfortunate is you're going to have to bring on a lot of people to get there. So in practicing on the people who don't get it, we'll get you ready for the people who do. So that's what I got.
All right. I think you pretty much covered it and then some, which is good. So with that, that is what we have for today. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and Bess is back from her trip from seeing grandkids, or grandkid. We got all the pictures. She's super cute. She's very cute. But, yep, so the show will be with her tomorrow, so you guys are welcome to jump on Bess McCarty's page. She also put a comment in the comments below, so if you can't find her, there she is. And she will be covering Chapter 10 tomorrow, and then I think... is Chapter 10 the last chapter? I think 12. It is. Nope. There's 13. Okay, so we got a few more chapters left before we start the next book. But the show will be on Bess McCarty's page tomorrow, and then we will see you guys Thursday.
Awesome.